Welcome back to the channel where we explore the most spine-chilling tales and eerie encounters you won't hear anywhere else. Tonight, we bring you a haunting story straight from the misty mountains, a tale of guilt, redemption, and an otherworldly guardian who appears when you least expect her. Imagine setting out on a simple journey to honor the dead, only to find yourself face to face with a mysterious figure whose warnings might just save or end your life. This is the story of the Fat Lady Who Blocks the Way, a tale so gripping it will leave you questioning every shadow you see on your next hike. So, grab your snacks, dim the lights, and prepare for a journey into the unknown. Are you ready? Let's begin. A journey of guilt. Yan Gui was a man living under the weight of his past. In his youth, a moment of reckless arrogance had led to the tragic death of his best friend, Li Zhongping, though the specifics of that day remained a closely guarded secret. The guilt haunted Yan Gui for decades. Every Qingming festival, he would make the arduous journey to Li Zhongping's grave, deep in the mountains near Wujiatun, to pay his respects and seek some measure of absolution. This year, however, an unshakable sense of urgency drove Yan Gui to leave earlier than usual. His wife, a resilient woman who had stood by him through years of hardship, was reluctant to let him go alone. "You've always had a knack for inviting trouble," she said, her voice firm. "This time, I'm coming with you." The couple packed lightly, some mantou buns, a flask of water, and a few essentials, and set out for the mountain. Little did they know, their simple journey to honor the dead would turn into a harrowing encounter with forces beyond their understanding. The storm. The trail to Li Zhongping's grave was narrow and treacherous, winding through dense forests and steep inclines. The air grew colder as they ascended, and dark clouds began to gather overhead. Yan Gui's wife glanced nervously at the sky. "We should turn back," she said. "It looks like a storm's coming." "We've come too far to turn back now," Yan Gui replied, his determination unwavering. "If it rains, we'll find shelter." The words had barely left his mouth when a deafening clap of thunder split the air, and the heavens unleashed a torrential downpour. The trail turned to mud, and visibility dropped to near zero. Yan Gui held his wife's hand tightly, guiding her through the downpour. Then, as if by fate, they stumbled upon a small cave nestled in the mountainside. The fat woman appears. The cave was barely large enough for the two of them, but it offered much-needed refuge from the storm. Yan Gui quickly gathered some dry twigs and kindled a fire. The couple huddled close, roasting their mantou buns over the flames. Despite the dire circumstances, Yan Gui tried to lighten the mood with a few jokes. His wife chuckled softly, her spirits lifted by his efforts. But their moment of respite was short-lived. Through the curtain of rain, a figure emerged, a fat, elderly woman, waddling unsteadily along the slippery trail. She slipped and fell with a loud thud, her soaked clothes clinging to her round frame. "Dear heavens, are you all right?" Yan Gui exclaimed, rushing to help her up. The woman's face was pale, her expression blank and unreadable. She neither thanked him nor acknowledged his kindness. Instead, she trudged into the cave without a word, dripping water onto the ground. Feeling uneasy, but unwilling to be rude, Yan Gui offered her one of their roasted mantou buns. The woman stared at it disdainfully. "This? Not even enough to fill a tooth gap," she scoffed. "Hand over all your food if you don't want trouble." The couple exchanged uneasy glances. Reluctantly, they handed over their remaining food, watching in stunned silence as the woman devoured it with unsettling speed. When the rain finally eased, Yangui turned to the woman. "Where are you headed? Perhaps we can travel together." The woman's lips curled into a faint smile. "I'm not going forward. Neither should you." Her cryptic words sent a chill down Yangui's spine. Deciding it was best to part ways, he and his wife hurriedly left the cave, the silent pursuit. As they descended the mountain, Yangui couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. Every so often, he glanced over his shoulder, but the trail was empty. Still, his left eye, blinded years ago, but capable of seeing things others couldn't, throbbed painfully. Something was wrong. "Walk ahead of me," Yangui told his wife. "If anything happens, I'll handle it." They quickened their pace, their footsteps echoing through the damp forest. But no matter how fast they walked, the faint shuffle of heavy footsteps followed them, always just out of sight. Then, as they rounded a bend, Yangui froze. Standing at the edge of a wooden bridge was the fat woman, the shrine. Forced to take a detour, the couple ventured deeper into the forest. The trail grew narrower, the trees thicker, and the air colder. As night fell, they stumbled upon an old shrine hidden among the trees. It was dilapidated, its wooden beams weathered by time, but it offered shelter. The shrine's interior was cold and damp, the air heavy with the scent of mildew. Yangai lit a small fire while his wife huddled close. Neither of them spoke, their silence punctuated only by the distant howl of the wind, the final confrontation. As the night deepened, the fire began to flicker. A low, guttural laugh echoed through the shrine, sending a chill down their spines. Yangui grabbed a burning stick, his only weapon, and stepped outside. There she was, the fat woman, standing at the edge of the clearing. But she was no longer human. Her limbs were unnaturally long, her face twisted into a horrifying grin. Her eyes burned with an otherworldly light as she advanced toward them. "You didn't listen," she snarled. "Now you'll pay the price." Yangui thrust the torch toward her, the flames illuminating her grotesque form. The woman let out an ear-piercing scream and recoiled. Summoning his courage, Yangui stepped forward. "Leave us alone," he shouted. The woman paused, her expression softening. For a fleeting moment, she looked almost human, sad, even. "You owe me your lives," she whispered, before vanishing into the shadows. The aftermath. By the time they reached Wujiatun the next morning, the couple was exhausted but alive. They recounted their story to the villagers, who listened in stunned silence. One elder finally spoke. "You encountered the mountain guardian. She appears to those who tread dangerously close to death. You should count yourselves lucky." From that day on, Yangui never missed another Qingming festival. He honored not only his friend Li Zhongping, but also the mysterious woman who had saved their lives, even as she haunted their memories. The legend of the fat woman endures in the mountains to this day, her warnings a chilling reminder of the fine line between life and death. "You're too slow," she said, her voice flat and emotionless. "I told you not to go forward." Yangui's heart raced. How had she gotten ahead of them? He had been sure she was behind them just moments ago. "What do you want from us?" he demanded. "Why are you blocking our path?" The woman's face twisted into a grotesque mask of rage. "Turn back," she hissed, "or you'll regret it." The collapse. Ignoring her warning, Yangui grabbed his wife's hand and stepped onto the bridge. But as they crossed, a deafening roar filled the air. The ground shook violently, and a landslide of boulders thundered down the mountainside, smashing the bridge to pieces. The couple barely made it back to solid ground before the entire structure collapsed into the ravine below. Breathless and shaken, Yangui turned to thank the woman, but she was gone. The trail was empty, as if she had never been there. Was she trying to save us? His wife asked, her voice trembling. Yangui nodded slowly. Though the woman's presence had been terrifying, her warning had undoubtedly saved their lives.